Hey guys, Jeremy here from Level Up Roadcraft in Katoomba. I hope you're staying safe and I hope you are doing your hours. On today's show, 6 essential tips that you need to know before going for your piste test. So, 6 tips. Now basically these 6 tips are things that I have to tell every learner. You know, it seems to be the standard 6 viable advice that I can give almost anyone. I guarantee you one of the 6 will apply to you. So, tip number 1, slow down in order to be smooth. So what I mean by that is, as a learner, we kind of feel like we have something to prove during this test. This test isn't about proving you are a great driver, okay? That's an entirely different thing. What this test is about is it's a box ticking check, right? So basically, they need to tick the box that every corner, you know, you do your braking right, you do your indicator right, you do your head check right. When you deal with a hazard that you slow down, it's just them ticking boxes. And it is a lot easier for a passenger to tick boxes and to write things if you're driving nice and smooth. And a lot of learners are often in a hurry. It's because they're nervous, especially when people are nervous. We accelerate much faster, we kind of brake up, just slow it all down by like 10-15% in order to be smooth. Because here's something you probably haven't thought about. When you're driving, right, you have the steering wheel to brace yourself, so you don't get thrown around the car as much because the steering wheel braces you. Your passenger has nothing to brace them, so they're going to feel the movement in the car a lot more than the driver is, right? So if you think you're driving okay, have a look at your passenger. If they're moving around, it's an unpleasant ride for them. And remember that the RMS assessor is effectively a VIP in your car, a very important person, because they're going to give you a license if you do it right. So drive them like a VIP, be smooth. When I was learning, my instructor, who was actually an ex-highway patrol motorbike guy, he always taught me how to drive while he held a cup of tea in a saucer. And if I spilt tea from the teacup to the saucer, I'd get yelled at. I would have never wanted to know what happened if I actually spilt the tea from the teacup to his lap. But he called it limo driving, right? And that's the piece, is taking your time and slowing down in order to be smooth creates a really good, nice experience for the assessor. And remember, they've got to doubt you to start with. Like, they doubt that you can drive because you're a learner. And if you're driving nice and smooth, they're going to feel a lot better, all right? Now, tip number 2, give yourself time. Now, what I mean by this is a lot of the times we screw ourselves over in the future. So us on the straight bit of road screws the version of us in the corner because we don't give ourselves enough time. Now, what that translates to is brake earlier than you think you need to, right? Like, when we arrive at an intersection, what a lot of learners find is they get muddled at the actual intersection, and that's because they're trying to do too much at the corner or at the intersection. They're trying to adjust vehicle speed and look around and do the head checks and, you know, not go over the line at the intersection. They're trying to do all this stuff at the same time. The key is slow down earlier before the intersection, all right? So if you are coming up to an intersection, you want to do your braking harder and earlier than you think you need, so that when you come to the intersection, you can come off the brakes. It will give you a bit more time, because you're going slower just before the intersection. It will give you more time to do your head checks, so your head checks can be nice and smooth, like, and they look a lot more purposeful rather than, oh, because, you know, that just never looks good from an assessor's point of view. But yeah, slow down and give yourself time. You know, like, don't be in a rush into the intersection, because then you're just screwing you that has to deal with the intersection out of time. Give yourself time earlier. Always think further ahead. You know, this is why we look further up the road. If you see something happening further up the road, a truck backing out or something like that, slow down earlier. Give yourself time to be able to deal with that truck. You know, give yourself time to be able to deal with the unexpected. As I always say, when you're on a test, no one else out in the real world knows that you're being tested. You're the only one, you know, unless someone's really paying attention to the yellow vest in your passenger seat. Trust me, they never will. So ultimately, give yourself the time to deal with what you could see happening, give yourself time to deal with the intersections you can see you're approaching, and then give yourself a little bit of time to deal with something that's unexpected, all right? Tip number 3, indicate better, all right? Now, what I mean by this is, a lot of times when I see people, when I'm teaching people, when they go to merge, they hit their indicator at the last second, and as soon as their indicator turns on, they're doing their head check and they're jumping across lanes. You're supposed to indicate for 5 seconds, all right? I've had a couple of conversations in the perfect pass video with this in the comment section. You're supposed to indicate for 5 seconds. Now, the best advice I can give you on a merge is when you're gonna merge, and I'll do a whole video on that in the future, put your indicator on and just leave it on for 2 seconds before you even start doing your head checks, all right? When you're practicing, learn to put your indicator on, assess the gap, and turn it back off again, like you just decided that there wasn't a safe gap to go. You need to disconnect putting the indicator on with immediately merging, all right? It's really important that you can put your indicator on, and if it's not appropriate, turn it off. You know, if you're gonna pull out from the side of the street and you got your indicator on, there's a car coming, if you're gonna let that car pass, just turn your indicator off so that car knows it can go past you. Because indicators are not just telling people where you're about to move to in the next split second. Indicators are a way of communicating to another driver that enables them to adjust their buffer spaces and keep their safety. So, you know, stage 1 of driving is don't hit shit, right? Stage number 2 of driving is drive in a manner that creates a buffer around the vehicle so you are safe at all times. Stage number 3, advanced driving, is where you drive in a manner that lets you keep your buffer and in a manner that lets everyone else decide and keep their buffer as well. So indicate better. If you're going to have to make a turn around a blind corner, indicate slightly earlier. Like if you add an extra second or so or 2 seconds onto your indicator, but it's not confusing, what I mean by that is if you indicate before one street that you're not turning down and you're going to turn down the second street on your left, that's confusing if you indicate before the first street. But if you just put your indicator on an extra second away to treat it like more of a defensive technique, so if you're trying to turn right off a highway, for example, and you put your indicator on a little bit early, well, that's going to help prevent someone being up your ass when you're trying to turn, all right? And on your test, you're already going to be nervous. So your indicator, if used appropriately, can actually help everyone else help you maintain your buffer because you're helping them maintain theirs. So make sure you indicate better. Yes, sure, there are some times where you might turn left and then turn right very quickly and there's not enough time to put the indicator on for 5 seconds. I'm going to say genuinely, it's rare, all right? Most of the time, if your indicator's not words are hard today. Most of the time, if your indicator is not on long enough, it's because you didn't plan or you didn't give yourself time or you rushed yourself, right? Or you weren't smoothing it out and slowing it down a bit. All right, tip number 4, head checks. The 2 most common things that I see fails in tests are this one and the next point, all right? Now, if you miss 3 head checks on your 3rd head checks, they're like strikes. 3rd strike, you're out, you're done, all right? So it's really important to do all of your head checks. Now, there may be a situation where you're driving on your test and something odd happens, like you're on a double blind corner and you got to wait for a second because there's a lot of traffic and then you got to pull out. There's a pretty high chance you might have done your head check when you're coming to the corner. You might be looking like a hawk, looking for that gap to pull out in traffic with. And then all of a sudden, you might find yourself having to take a very small gap that's safe, of course, but you forgot to head check on the way out. There's a chance you're going to drop 1 or 2, right? It's really important to get religious on your head checks, all right? When it comes to a corner, you want to do them late enough that the head check is relevant for the corner, but early enough that it doesn't impact your ability to look through the intersection or the corner you're dealing with. Now, here is my general rule. This is my head check rule. Basically, every time an indicator goes on, there's going to be a head check you need to do. So if that indicator goes on, it's not going tick, 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 tick. That indicator is saying to you, head check, head check, head check, head check. That's what the indicator is trying to tell you, right? Head check, head check, head check. So every time your indicator goes on, I guarantee you there's at least 1 head check you need to be doing. Every time you are standing still, you need to head check both sides of the car. So if you're parked on the side of the curb and about to pull out, you've got to head check both sides of the car. If you're stopped and you're about to pull in on a reverse park, you need to head check both sides of the car. If you're doing a 3-point turn and you're stationary for a moment during the 3-point turn, in between the stages, you got to check both sides of the car. If you're at traffic lights and you're stationary, you got to check both sides of the car. So if the indicator comes on, there's always a head check in the direction of the indicator. If you're stationary, you have to check both sides of the car and you end on the direction of the indicator if you've got one on. And the third thing is, if you are coming out of a park position, or if you are going into a park position, or if you just want to make sure that double check it, you check your right side twice, okay? Especially when pulling out of a park or about to drive into a park. You check that right side twice, right? That's the easiest way I can tell you. And as I said, be really religious on head checks, because when people get nervous, You might forget a head check here or there, and if you're religious on all of them, and those nerves just make you forget one, you're still gonna pass, all right? Tip number 5. Told you words were hard today. I've done a lot of lessons already. Tip number 5, stop at stop signs. Now, you might think, duh, right? It's a stop sign. How stupid do you have to be to not stop at a stop sign? Well, when you're nervous, your brain is running a lot faster than it normally does, right? Your thoughts are going to be going a lot faster. Now, what that translates to in the real world is if your brain's running faster than it normally is, a lot of times I've seen in tests, people super nervous, their brain's running really fast, they think that they came to a full stop, and they did not. And it's what I call a soft stop. I've seen plenty of people who are just really nervous on a test day, and they go through a stop sign, and they get back and I say to the assessor, what was the fail about? And they go, well, they didn't stop at a stop sign. And I always ask the question, did they blow through it? And my students know that they always have to slow down and check all the directions. And so the assessors always laugh at me, go, no, they slowed down, they came out safely, but they broke the law. This is because they didn't stop. Now, the way I teach a stop sign is when you come to a stop sign, once you come to a complete stop, you need to spell the word stop in your head. You can do it out loud if you want. Like, it doesn't matter. The assessor's not going to think you're crazy if you go S-T-O-P, because they're going to kind of get an idea that you're making sure that things are safe, all right? Although you look a little mad, there's not a problem with it, all right? So when you come to a stop sign, spell the word stop. Every time you especially if you're at, like I said, traffic lights. In Katoomba, we've got a set of traffic lights that says you can turn left after stopping. Everyone rolls up to that light, they look right to make sure it's clear, and they don't stop fully at the light, and they roll through it, they fail the test at that light, which is like 3 streets into the test, right? So it's important that you always stop at stop signs, that you always stop at stop lights, even if you're allowed to turn afterwards. And to make sure you fully stop, spell the word stop in your head. I had a student just earlier today, and we were going through stop signs, just to make sure that they're ready. I always try and do my very best to mitigate what nerves may do to people. And they were coming up to a stop sign, and they slowed right down, and they went ST, and they didn't actually stop the car until they got to O. And then I felt the car actually come to a complete stop. Then they went OP, and then they took off. Now the thing is they actually did completely stop because they spelled the word stop. And because you're spelling the word stop, it kind of helps the back of your head, your unconscious mind, remind you to stop. It gives you a little bit of a chance. So, if you are doing the roll and you spell the word stop in your head, it just helps the back of your head, help the front of your head, help your hands and feet. Make sure you stop at that stop line, all right? And stop before it. Don't try and stop on the line, okay? Stop signs are like virginity. You can only do them once. So if you've got a stop line and it's a bit of a crappy intersection, stop, a half a meter before the stop line. Come to a full stop. Spell the word stop to yourself. So that way we've done the stop sign. Now, once you've completely stopped and you've done the stop sign, you are allowed to actually merge out a little bit further and push your nose a little bit further out into the intersection in order to get better vision, and then treat it like a give way from that point. As long as you come to a full stop before you're going to treat it like a give way sign, right? Tip number 6, +1. I got to keep one hand on the wheel when I'm talking to you. Tip number 6 is breathe, all right? As I said, the biggest problem I ever see out of my students, because my students are diligent, they go home, they do their homework I give them. I do my very best to make things as simple and as easy and as straightforward as I can for you guys. I really hope my information is as straightforward and as easy so you can remember it, not just for your test. I want you to remember this stuff for the rest of your life. I want you to be the P-plater who drives like I'm teaching you on your P-plates. Most P-platers have a 6 times higher accident rate than every other driver. And the reason they have that is because they don't do their head checks. They don't train for them normally when they're driving. They force them during the test. They fluke their test because they spent all their brain power remembering their head check during the test. The very next day, they're not doing their head checks. That's why you P-platers have accidents, right? And you don't do what I'm telling you. So this advice, these 6 points, they apply for the entirety of driving, okay? So the last point is breathe, all right? Driving tests can be stressful. They're not hard. Really, you're just going for a drive. If you're a really methodical driver and you methodically, slow down before the intersection. So at 2 telegraph poles, put your indicator on it. 1 telegraph pole, brake and get your position right for the intersection or the corner. At a half a telegraph pole, do your head check for the corner. That way when you get to the corner, you got your head's free to be able to look around and do what you got to do, right? So at the end of the day, breathe, okay? Plan yourself out, be methodical, but breathe. Because as long as we control our breathing, and if we're stressed, it's okay. People think nerves are bad, all right? Nerves are not bad if we use them positively. If we let our nerves infest our brain and go, oh, you're gonna fail, oh, you know, you screwed up, oh, you just touched that double white line, oh, did your head check, no, you're all good, you suck at this, you can't drive. If you let your nerves do that to you, you need to tell yourself to shut up in your head. Like seriously, just go, shut up, I can do this. That's what you need to tell yourself. You really gotta turn your nerves into positive. So if your brain starts giving you grief, if you start beating yourself up inside over nerves, you need to tell your nerves to do something constructive. I always say nerves are good. We want our nerves to be focused on the details of what's going on around us. So we want our nervousness to not be beating ourselves up inside. We want our nervousness to be assessing cars around us so that we are keeping an eye out. We want our nerves and our anxiety to be watching, you know, our head checks. We want them to be watching our indicator. Did I get my indicator on? Did I get my head check on? Is this clear for me to go? We want our nerves to be doing that, right? That's the most important thing. Right? And at the end of the day, sometimes, look, you might miss a head check. In the real world, you do. You know, during a park, you might touch the curb. As long as you don't go up it, you're okay, you know? You've got to just stay calm. Keep breathing. If you make a mistake, you might just lose a point. Let the point go. You've got the whole rest of the test to keep going and you might still pass, okay? So, you got to stay an optimist through this, all right? Be a pessimist, treat the traffic as a pessimist, assume everyone's gonna cut you off. I always say, if you're doing the test, treat everyone as if they're drunk. In the cars, out of the cars, whatever you're doing, just assume that they're all drunk, okay? It's an easier way to deal with everyone on your test. And you'll give them a little bit of extra space and a little bit of extra buffer time. Like I got a guy here, I don't know what he's doing, he's on the wrong side of the road. Good work, anyway, head checks. But at the end of the day, if you breathe, if you stay calm, if you just turn your nerves into something constructive rather than destructive, I think you'll be okay, all right? So tip number one, slow down in order to be smooth. Being smooth is sexy when you drive. Your passengers will really appreciate it. Step number two, give yourself time. So slow down now so that in the near future, you're not in such a hurry, all right? Step number three, indicate better. Indicate slightly earlier. Make sure you leave your indicator on to let everyone adjust. When you're changing lanes, make sure you are fully in the lane before turning off your indicator. Step number four, head check. Every time the indicator comes on, you're going to do a head check. Every time you are pulling in or out of a park, you're going to check the right side twice. Every time you're stationary and about to do a maneuver or leaving traffic lights, you're going to check both sides of the car. They're your rules. Tip number five, stop at stop signs. Remember to spell the word stop at a stop sign and to stop before the stop line so you never run onto the stop line. Okay, that's really important. Tip number six, breathe. Nerves can be useful as long as we turn them into a positive. And guys, all the love to you guys who are always working at being a better driver. I've got nothing but respect to you learners. Everyone who's achieved their P's. Oh, the love I have to you guys for telling me that you guys have successfully passed your test. If you passed your test, congratulations, well done. I always say that in the comments to you guys, but I am really happy for you. If you haven't passed your test, it's okay, all right? It's not the end of the world. I know it feels like the end of the world. Some people fail a test and they're defeated and they feel horrible, but the truth is, it's not the end of the world. Book another one. Ask the assessor, what do I need to improve in order to come back and pass next time? It's a good question to ask. Oh, one other thing I did have today. If you're not sure about directions, you can ask, so if they say turn right here and you're crap with left and right, repeat their direction back to them. So I'm turning right here, and they'll say yes. They're allowed to answer that question, okay? They are allowed to answer questions about directions or instructions that they give. If you ask them, am I allowed to turn right here? They can't answer that question. But if you ask them, did you tell me to turn right here? Or am I turning right here? They are allowed to answer that question. So, and there's nothing wrong. Again, if you're nervous, parrot back, double check everything, okay? There's nothing wrong with that. I did it like when I had to go through it all. And anyway, my name's Jeremy from Level Up Roadcraft in Katoomba. I hope you're doing your hours. Remember to always stay calm, pay attention, and keep safe. If you have a question or a video you'd like to see, I've got like How to deal with nerves on test, I'm getting to that one. Parking video, I'm getting to that one. Merging video, I'm getting to that one. How to deal with the police, I have that one recorded, it will be coming out. In fact, I don't know if you're gonna see it before this one. But anyway, I have some videos coming. If there's a video you really wanna see, put it in the comment down below. If there's a question, put it in the comment down below, because lots of learners look at these videos. Lots of learners look at the comments and they may not have to, maybe someone who's super nervous and not sure about asking a question, maybe they'll read the question that you asked that they wanted to ask, and they'll read the answer I gave you. And maybe that's gonna make another good driver. So if you've got a question, put it in the comments. I'll do my best to answer them all. Sometimes you don't give me enough data. I'm sorry about that. I try my best to answer them. To everyone who sent me their green sheets when I've requested it, thank you. It has helped me actually understand some of the changes. The RMS is always kind of changing how they do the assessment. They'll focus on different things. So you guys who are letting me know that you fail and how you failed, it is helping me. Thank you so much for that as well, especially for sharing, you know, not the happiest moment that you've got. I do appreciate that. It helps me adjust to be able to teach you guys a bit better. At the moment, there is making sure you're on the left side of the lane to turn left. That's a thing at the moment, by the way, for whatever reason. Head checks are a big thing. And being on the correct side of the lane when you are turning, so you're positioning before turning. That's really important at the moment for some reason. So that's the flavor of the month. Anyway, I've yabbered on forever. I hope you got value out of the video. Remember to stay calm, keep safe, and pay attention. Words are so hard and I've had to use so many. My name's Jeremy from Level Up Roadcraft into Katoomba, and until next time.